Hey everyone, welcome or welcome back. I'm the Redheaded Witch. First of all, I hope everyone is doing well. The last time I spoke to you all, I was talking about some exciting projects that I have in the works, and I actually announced one last week on my Patreon. Now, if you're not a member of my Patreon community and you're interested, I will leave the link in the description. Most recently, I announced FOLKCRAFT Workshop. FOLKCRAFT Workshops was inspired by, I really want to foster this community that I have on Patreon. I value all so much, and I think that starting to do workshops is a great chance for us to spend some quality time virtually together, as well as collaborating with some amazing other creators within and without and outside of our community. So join not only if you're interested in the workshops, but also please let me know if there's another creator that you think that would be a great fit for me to reach out and that you would want to see a collaboration and a workshop with. Be sure to leave that in the comment below. And yeah, this is something I'm really excited about. It has been in the works for some time, and I thought that, you know, fall is a great opportunity to start, you know, seeing how this is gonna work. It's going to be my first one. In addition to announcing FOLKCRAFT workshops, I also announced the first workshop that I will be doing with my good friend Ella Harrison this month. Now, if you're not a Patreon member and you're curious what it is, you can find more information on Patreon. Other than that, keep your eye out on social media. I think by the time this video comes out, we would have shared it on Instagram. But in the event not, I'm not gonna like spoil it. But it's not really a secret. If you're on Patreon, you know what it is. But we're both really excited about it. If you're unfamiliar with Ella Harrison, she's another creator on YouTube. She also has Instagram. She also does TikTok, but she has been in the community for some time now, and she is just published her first book, The Book of Spells. So if you're interested in that discussion with her, we'll be kind of talking about her book, some elements of her book during the workshop, and going through some really fun activities. Now, aside from FOLKCRAFT workshops and the amazing things that are happening over on Patreon, this month they voted on Ancestral Veneration for beginners. And I think that this is a pretty big conversation. So today's video, I'm going to focus more on, you know, if you're in the beginning stages of your practice and you have a keen interest into venerating your ancestors, this may be like where you decide to start. So one thing that I'm going to go ahead and recommend is the book Honoring Your Ancestors by Mallory Boudoir. This book was super helpful for me personally when I decided to start venerating my ancestors and really focus my practice on honoring them. So highly recommend it. It really does talk about who your ancestors are, how you can start that relationship and start to nurture it. As we start to approach the darker months of the year, I often find many practitioners and witches are keen on spirit work because there is kind of like that sense of like the veil is thinning, and therefore it's a little bit easier to communicate to the other world and to spirits. This is why often you will see traditions during the darker months, particularly around All Hallows Eve or Samhain, you know, really incorporating spirit work and honoring our ancestors during that time. And that's because during this time of year, we find it to be easier. There's definitely a particular energy around it. And for me personally, I always experience you know, spirit activities during these times of years when it's starting to get darker earlier. Now, you can always start venerating your ancestors prior to this time. Venerating your ancestors can be done at any time of the year. It just seems to be a little bit more of a tradition to do it around Samhain. Now, for me personally, October is an important month of honoring the dead, because it is the anniversary of someone who was really close to me when they passed away. So already I kind of incorporate a ritual on the day of which they passed, and that is just the way that I have decided to honor their life. And the way that it looks is, it's different, you know, but for the most part it's very similar to how I honor my ancestors. Now, your ancestors, just really quick, I want to clarify, ancestors are not only your blood relatives, they are also individuals from your lineage. So like, you know, whether they were like adopted into your family or married into your family. And they're also individuals of like your personal communities, so like where you live locally. I think that some individuals might be intimidated if they don't know who their direct like blood relatives are. They don't feel like they can honor their ancestors because they don't know who they are. But ancestors is a larger definition, if that makes sense. For example, if you're an artist and one of your favorite artists, you know, was back in the like 17th century, you may decide to honor that artist by having their photo on your altar and maybe some other trinkets like a particular paintbrush to use you know, during like your art, to honor them and to kind of use their energy as a guidance through that art piece. So that's kind of, you know, that's just an example of what an ancestor may be to you as well. Now, there's a few different ways to go about finding information about your ancestors. I recognize like it's going to be different for everyone, and whether you have been adopted or someone within your family is adopted, that information may not have been recorded, or you may not have access to it easily. Also, individuals of the BIPOC community may not have access to accurate historical documentations because they were either not recorded or they were destroyed. So everyone's process is going to look differently, but I just want to reassure you that despite what the process may look like, there is always an ancestor on the other side, excited to meet you and excited to connect with you. Let that be a reassurance that maybe you don't know their name, maybe you don't know their birthday or anything, or whatever, but know that they're there, and that when you start venerating their spirit, it's going to become stronger because you're just nurturing that relationship and you're opening yourself to that opportunity. How do we go about, you know, nurturing that relationship and honoring our ancestors? The first thing I always recommend, and you know, kind of my approach, obviously everyone's process is going to be different and approach is going to be different, but I like to create a space for them on my altar. You don't have to put it on your altar. You can create, you know, their own altar or their own safe space somewhere else within your home that feels right to you. And that's somewhere that you're going to visit often. And then just spend time there. Spend time reading there, reading out loud to them. You know, if you do some sort of hobby like knitting, knit at their altar, or, you know, even if it's somewhere that you just walk by, spend some time with them. And that's, you know, how we build relationships in the physical realm, right? We spend time with them and we get to know them, we ask questions and we banter back and forth. And so that is kind of how I go about, or how I went about when I first started honoring my ancestors, is I created them that space. What that space looks like is also going to vary from person to person. So if you do have pictures, you may decide to use pictures. If you don't have pictures, that's okay too. If you have trinkets of a family member that passed away, you may decide to place it there. And if you don't, that's okay too. It could be just a bouquet of flowers that you refresh every week. It could be a candle that just, you know, has, you know, some herbs around it that support spiritual connection. It depends on your personal preference and like what is available to you. But there's no right or wrong way. And that's how I go about starting the process of nurturing a relationship with my ancestors, is to start creating them that space and dedicating some time, whether that's daily or weekly, depending on your schedule. I hope you found some inspiration in this video, and like I said, I highly recommend that book, Honoring Your Ancestors. It was super helpful for me and it has a lot of valuable information in it. I think when we open that door and start developing that connection to our ancestors, it really does offer a special kind of knowledge and a special kind of guidance along your path. For me, my practice is quite centered around my ancestors, getting to know their traditions, the lore, and also to heal, and also to focus on what beliefs and, you know, behaviors and patterns that I recognize in my family today that doesn't serve us. And so taking initiative to heal those wounds, because I recognize like what I do for myself today does affect those before me as much as they affect those around me today and those, you know, after me, if that is a thing. When it comes to working with our ancestors, that is a bit of a different conversation because there's so many elements to it. So we'll save that for another time. But I do hope this inspires you in some way and, you know, gets you thinking about whether or not this is a practice that you want to incorporate into your own journey. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments. Otherwise, I will see you in the next one.